This is a beginning point. This is the beginning of the rest of my life. I got the meaning, and I got to write it down, because I don't want to forget it.
Just win, baby.
And welcome back to the Gold Jacket Podcast, proudly sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has it all. You know this, daily, weekly, and season-long best ball tournaments that are literally happening 365 days a year. Plus, you can play their pick and prop games, and you get 5 right, you can win 20 times your money. Head on over to UnderdogFantasy.com, use the promo code TNFF. You will get a 100% deposit match on your first $100. I'm your host, Gymnastic. You can find me doing backflips on Twitter at GoldJacketQBs. I'm joined, as always, when I'm here by the other host of the show, Connor Donald. He could be found on Twitter at Connor10. That's TEN, not the 1 and the 0. He has a bunch of podcasts. He just jumped off one before this one. So you can find them all over the place. We're proud members of the True North Fantasy Football Network. Make sure to check out the entire network on Twitter at True North FFB. On YouTube, if you're watching right now, thank you, TNFF Network. And on the internet at TrueNorthFFB.com. Tonight, we wrap up the 4th week of your fantasy football, and we look to week 5. Week 4 was a shit show. This was the week where a bunch of shit happened. Every year, it seems like this is the week. Like there is a week, but this seemed to be the week. But first up, Connor, what's happening?
Bunch of shit happened, and Kyle Pitts is still not good this year. But, I mean, everybody's blaming Arthur Smith. I mean, I think I'm starting to get on board with that as well. But, I mean, the Falcons are 2-2 or 3-1. So, I mean, whatever. You win, you win. They don't give a fuck about your fantasy team. But, yeah, week 4 was, one of those weeks in a couple leagues where you get the sleeper report and you're the 3rd ranked team and you lost to the 1 or the 2. That was me in a couple leagues. And I said, well, shit. But it happens. But man, I'm excited because, but like you alluded to, a lot of shit actually did happen in the league. So let's get to the stories that matter. When I wrote this, it wasn't a sure thing yet. I said Mitch Trubisky versus Kenny Pickett. Where do the Steelers go? It is quite clear. Kenny Pickett was adamantly picked as a starting quarterback. Like, we are Tuesday, and he's already been named the starting. Like, this morning, he was named the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was something I had spoken about earlier in the season, or in the offseason, where I said Kenny Pickett will be in there at some point this season. Jim said, nah, get your Mitch Trubisky shares. I have a Mitch Trubisky share.
Sense.
I have a Mitch Trubisky share in an SFB satellite league where I cannot go and do any waiver claims. I think I took Kenny Pickett as well, though, so I might be safe. But
listen, It doesn't make sense, I said, from a football standpoint to unleash a kid. I don't understand. Okay, listen. Once upon a time, when people did fantasy football statistics through the newspaper, rookie quarterbacks weren't thrown in week 1, week 2, week 4, year 1. It wasn't even heard of. They sat behind. They learned their trade. You were lucky if you got 2 years out of the rookie contract. It was fantastic. I'm not saying wait 3 years behind a starter, especially not Mitch Trubisky, but it doesn't make sense to me for the Pittsburgh Steelers to roll out Kenny Pickett. I understand, see what he's got. But do it against closed doors. Roll out a vanilla. Try to, because listen, your offense is going to be different. I would assume with Kenny Pickett than it is with Mitch Trubisky. So you put him behind closed doors. I think of a franchise. You build an offense week 16, 17, 18 when it doesn't really mean that much. You throw them out there and you see what you got. Because I do agree you have to establish whether you do have something with them or you need to start looking some more. Do I think it's beneficial to be throwing rookies into the fire, as it is to say, in year 1, as we so often are doing now in the NFL? No. Because, man, What did he do? I mean, he had those 2 rushing touchdowns, but boy, howdy, he threw 3 interceptions. Like, I don't think like you could shock like, I don't know, you can ruin a kid's confidence doing it wrong. And I don't think he's going to win more games than Mitch Trubisky. And if he does win more games, then you're ruining, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem beneficial to me. He either wins more games and you hobble into a playoffs because I don't think you're a Super Bowl contender and you get a shittier draft pick, or you don't win more games and you potentially shatter this kid's confidence. I don't see the benefit. If it's getting repertoire with the pass catchers, like, you can put them in number 1 reps in practice all year. You could do that, especially if you're trying to get a better draft pick. You would not care if you're sacrificing one reps with Mitch. I don't know. That's my thing. It just doesn't make sense, I think, from a real life standpoint.
I think like, well, first of all, it's fantasy football. But second of all, I know that, like, Mike Tomlin, one of his big things is he's never been under 500. I don't think he's ever been under 500 as a head coach, especially with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is a team that, like, and Matt Canada's offense has just not been good. While he has an incredible last name, his offense has not been good for Mitch Trubisky. And it felt like Pickett had a better, like, okay, he threw 3 interceptions. I get that. But he ran for 2 touchdowns, which was pretty impressive for a guy whose mobility was not something. He was mobile, but not that mobile in college football. But at the end of the day, you invested in a draft class where the second quarterback went in round 3. And then after that, they were sporadically placed throughout. The fact that you went in the first round and grabbed this guy, this kind of spoke to, he was the most pro-ready quarterback, but it feels like you kind of said, he hasn't had the reps with the first team. He isn't ready to step in. That's why he went out there. He threw 3 interceptions. It didn't look that great, but he got some things going. He got that big play to George Pickens. He got the Russian touchdowns. He did a lot of things that Mitch Trubisky was not doing. And I saw a clip where it was side by side. It was Kenny Pickett. Well, it was one on top of the other. It was Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. Kenny Pickett's taking a big hit while throwing the ball and completing a pass. Trubisky is ducking, covering, and taking the sack. And there's the thing here is, like, if you want any chance to win, and this Pittsburgh Steelers organization is one of those ones that just will not accept defeat or accept loss, because they seem to be that one who always, like you said, scrapes into the playoffs, squeezes into the playoffs, does what they can to get there, get that 9-8 record or whatever they need to get. And this feels like, I mean, while I think it may be a little premature, Mitch Trubisky was bad. As a proud owner of him a not so proud owner of him in a best ball league, he never cracked my lineup in a best ball league. That's how bad this has been for him.
That's a disappointing dad looking on to a little league son.
Exactly. Like, in a best ball league, super flex, and you can't even fit that second fucking super flex spot 1 week that you are a quarterback is just so sad. So sad. It is heartbreaking, but I mean,
did he score more or less points than Baker Mayfield in Scott Fishbowl settings this week?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I mean,
Baker went negative. Baker went negative. I know that.
Baker has to have gone negative multiple weeks in Scott Fishbowl score, and he's been
what happened to this fucking deep ball shit that they said was supposed to fucking happen? You got to throw the fucking ball. You stupid piece of shit.
Looks like we are both disappointed fathers looking down on.
But by the way, just real quick on the rant, DJ Moore's fucking open. All right. I don't know what this Matt Rule's saying. Fucking these wide receivers need to get open. He's fucking open. You know what you got to do? You got to throw the fucking ball before he's wide open. You got to anticipate that shit. He doesn't.
I wrote the article a while back for Player Profiler talking about how the right choice was Baker Mayfield, and I drew out those 3 key stats, and he owned those categories for fantasy quarterbacks. And I have never wanted to say, can we get Sam Darnold back on this field? I screwed up in the article. Clearly we missed something.
Fuck.
I
Yeah,
thought last season was, I blamed last season on the shoulder, and now I'm looking and I'm like, no, Baker's just that bad. It has nothing to do with the shoulder. Baker and Matt Rule are two guys who will be out of jobs in the NFL next season. Well, Baker will get another job as a backup.
Week. God damn it. Help DJ Moore. Fuck.
All right, next one up is another quarterback situation. It's Tua Tagovailoa. There are reports out there he is meeting with the NFLPA's doctor for an interview, I think tomorrow or Thursday, one of these upcoming days. There are some reports alluding to, and while I don't know for certain how true these may be, that he could be done for the season.
Sue everybody you fucking can, Tua.
That's definitely one way to look at it, but we're going to try and look at it from a fantasy perspective. First of all, never should have went back into the game on Sunday. Second of all, never should have played on a short week. That second impact syndrome is a real thing. Like, he could have died on that football field. That we could have witnessed the death of a football player on a field, which is an absolutely absurd thought. And I understand that they have this process in place.
Could you imagine?
The fact that they're sitting there in instability after going down and hitting your head is now only becoming a rule. Mind blown that the amount of times guys have gotten up and been barely able to walk, and you test them in a way. And Tua to sit there, and Josh and Mike McDaniel to sit there and say, "Oh, it was a back injury." No, the NFLPA, the NFL, and the fans are not idiots. Do not.
Well,
and if it's a back injury, you should be out equally as much. Concussion or back injury, if you have that type of instability.
If you want to say back, it was definitely a back and head injury. Like,
it was a neck. It was the neck. It was the neck stem there, like a very bad.
Absolutely.
But I guess for the sake of the show, the impact on the Dolphins offense, you get Teddy Bridgewater as the likely incumbent quarterback.
That's exactly what he is, man. Teddy Bridgegap.
He is, but so what do you think this does for the offense? I mean, this is a guy who's been a bridge gap that has been able to
not much. I don't really think it does that much.
He can sustain one guy. This likely hurts Jalen Waddle. Like, if I'm sitting there saying anything, this likely hurts Waddle. This likely hurts Gesicki. This likely plays kind of well into the running backs' favors, like Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds. But don't sit here and tell me with any certainty you know who you're playing on any given week in that backfield. It's Tyreek Hill. Yeah, I think. And Teddy
paid 28 fucking or 25 million,
$30 million. He's the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And Tua didn't seem to get the memo, but Teddy Bridgewater, like, one of his first throws was a deep bomb to Tyreek. Teddy got the memo of what $30 million means to their football team. But like, when you look back at Teddy Bridgewater and what he's been able to sustain offensively, this hurts a lot more weapons than it helps weapons.
Steven, like, I don't think he's ever been in an offense like this either. Like, Teddy has a quick release, so I could see a faster game play. I could see him. Yeah, he takes those deep ball shots, but he also likes the close to the line of scrimmage plays where he makes his that's his wide receivers and running backs do the dance. Remember, it was Teddy Bridgewater that made Jerick McKinnon a thing, right? Like, that was him. If you were to
pick a wide receiver based on that premise, but based on that premise, the guy with the low average depth of target, the guy near the line of scrimmage creating the yards after the catch has been Jalen Waddle in that offense.
Yeah, but they can both do it. That's the thing.
They can both do it, but it seems like the offense has been drawn out in a way that Tyreek is the intermediate deep and Waddle is the intermediate short guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think I don't think it's going to hurt him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's going to hurt him. I still think it's going to be obviously Tyreek getting the majority, but I think it's still, I don't know. I think it's going to be a quicker paced offense than it was Teddy in Minnesota. I think you're going to see him throw a lot of passes, and then if they're both going to get 9 targets, they're both, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see one getting peppered with 17 and one getting like 4. You know what I mean? Like every week that thing happening, it's going to be more of a 9-9, 10-10 type of deal with Gesicki probably hurting, but I thought he was going to be hurting originally anyway with Tua, right? Like when you have those two guys to begin with. So I don't know. I don't think it's really going to change. If anything, it gets better for Tyreek Hill. Like you said, Teddy got the memo. If it's going to be a skew, I think it's definitely going to be to him. But I thought it was going to be to him to begin with. So I've been wrong on a few things with this fucking offense.
But I mean, you also look at it like you said that this could be a 10-10 type thing. Jalen Waddle has, 17, 40, 15, and 5 for his showings, and his 40-point showing was the completely insane Baltimore and Miami game, and that was where he got pretty much 50% of his fantasy points this season, a little less. So it was more like that's 30% of his fantasy points came in that one giant game, and in those other games, it was 5 targets, it was 6 targets, it was 5 targets. But he needed a 19 target showing where he could catch 11 balls for 171 yards and 2 TDs. And remember, I think Tyreek Hill had like 17 that game. It was a massive game. It was such an out of the ordinary game that a lot of fantasy managers were buying into as, look at Tua, look at this offense. But then you saw it come back to earth. Buffalo is a lot better defense and stuff. But you saw it against New England. You saw it against Buffalo. You saw that wasn't a realistic expectation for Tua, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill going forward.
And I'll talk about that Baltimore defense later on going forward because they are a sieve.
I like it. Running back injuries, Jonathan Taylor, looks like it could be a high ankle, although it sounds like he would like to be a go on Thursday night. So tough to say. He was in a walking boot yesterday, but thinks he's going on Thursday. And Javonte, my show notes say potentially serious knee injury. It was a very serious knee injury. It was an ACL and it was an LCL, which has a recovery time of approximately 15 months. J.K. Dobbins had this injury and it took him 12 months. So Jonathan Taylor, I don't think will miss very much time. This kind of seems a lot like Jonathan Taylor looked back to this Saquon Barkley high ankle sprain where he missed 2 games and freakishly came back. This doesn't affect Jonathan Taylor very much, and I wouldn't be going and buying in on 90 highs or anything. I wouldn't be getting into that. Javonte Williams, though, I'm interested to get your feedback on the seriousness of the injury, the impact of the pick, because there's a very realistic chance he's not ready to go to start next season, that he could start next season on the PUP list, and we don't see him till week 5 next season. So what are your thoughts on Javonte Williams, Mike Boone, Melvin Gordon? Melvin Gordon with 5 fumbles on the year?
Yeah, well, so I like Melvin Gordon, right? That's the thing. Hold on, I'm just looking up something real quick.
And I guess we have to really take into consideration how putrid this offense is in general right now. Is really bad with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson sounds like he will be a go on Thursday night, though, which is probably a good thing.
Okay, so here's my thing with Javonte Williams. I wasn't really that big in the share with him. Terrible injury. Love the Melvin Gordon. So it was kind of like a Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt type of backfield I saw going at it. And I'm a big fan of grabbing the cheaper one. So I was always grabbing Melvin Gordon. So that being said, can I just jump ahead real quick?
Absolutely.
So while everyone's grabbing Mike Boone, right? That's the big waiver wire ad this week. Mike Boone. Right? That's everybody's fucking go-to. I'm sneakily adding Latavius Murray, who is signed off the practice squad, to the Denver Broncos. He's not going to be activated on Thursday, so you're going to have a little bit of a time to add him because people might not even really realize it. Melvin Gordon's dealing with potential neck injuries. He's my sneaky waiver wire ad. He's a thumper. He's shown he can do it back in way 2016. I understand it's a long time since then, but he's shown that he can do exactly what's needed of him when called upon. Not asked to do much. He's a perfect type of committee back. He is the type of thunder that I would like to see replace Javonte Williams in that type of backfield. Obviously, he doesn't know the playbook, so he wouldn't be activated, being signed on a Tuesday for a Thursday game. That's going to go to Mike Boone, and while everyone's scrambling on the waiver wire, I expect in like the week to Latavius Murray for it to open up to him. Remember, like, he's a guy that way back in the day as a rookie forced some pretty good, talented people out of starting role positions and ended up going with him in Oakland. So seems like a perfect type of compliment. So that
as an Alvin Kamara owner in some leagues, I can tell you that he has also been a thorn in the side of Alvin Kamara owners for a little while as well.
Yep.
Stealing some red zone, end zone touches, getting
Look
some
what he
of the
did. Look
bigger
what he did
games.
last week. 5.1 yards a carry, not asked to do much. 10 yards or 10 carries, did exactly what was needed of him, and he scores a touchdown in the red zone. He's a fucking toucan. That's what I'm calling him now. Toucans. People that got noses for the end zone. Those motherfuckers, and he's one of them.
They're toucans for TDs. I like it.
Yeah.
For me, I agree. Like, we at the Gold Jacket podcast were ones that said Javonte Williams, the investment was way too high. Nathaniel Hackett, who looks like he could maybe potentially be a 1-year and gone head coach, is one of the guys that we said, look at what he did with Aaron Jones. He's the one who got you buying into AJ Dillon because of the duo that was Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon last season in Green Bay. So we felt like there was always, whether it was Melvin Gordon or whether it was somebody else, it was always going to be a second body that you had to worry about that was going to limit the Joe Mixon, the Jonathan Taylor, that 80%, opportunity in an offense. There was always going to be that limitation that you'd be staring down. While there's a lot of people who are sitting there, well, 60-40 in today's NFL, in today's fantasy world, that's a good split. He's limited when you're picking
size.
When you're picking him, especially, well, look at the offense now. Look at the plays that they're running. Look at how ineffective that they are. But when you look at it, like, you don't pick. I think Javonte Williams in the offseason was going to RB4 or something. Like, he was going insanely rich. If you're drafting a guy in the top 5 of RBs, you expect him, or I would expect my top 5 drafted running back to have a 75% plus market share of opportunity in a backfield. And that I never felt was realistic for Javonte Williams. And we're in a group chat where one of the guys said, sell Javonte Williams. And I actually stepped in and said, I actually agree with that. While you're not going to get the same return, I drew out the age thing. He's going to he's going to be, what was it? He's going to be 23 next year. So he's
probably not even going to play until week 6.
Yeah. So he's going to be closing in on the age 24, and they lose 20% of their effectiveness post this type of injury. And this fantasy football doctor that I followed also noted, while people are going to point to J.K. Dobbins is way more elite of an athlete than Javonte Williams. So J.K. Dobbins' return to this superiority as a running back is going to happen a lot quicker than likely Javonte Williams. So there's a chance that you might have a really ineffective Javonte Williams for a majority of next season. And while you're not going to see him likely till at least week 4, like you said, he's probably going to start on the PUP list. And then you have a 20% less effective for X amount of time. The Broncos are going to bring in another running back. I think Melvin Gordon might be under contract for a couple seasons. This is all making up for, okay, you're buying into a guy who's going to have his breakout year as a 25-year-old running back off of a serious knee injury.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not really sold. And that's a big window for somebody else to come in and perform cheap. You know what I mean? Like, and I said, Latavius Murray has fucking done it.
And look at this running back, running back free agent class this year.
Oh my God, it's insane.
There is somebody joining that. It's going to be a trio next year when Javonte Williams comes back next season.
Insane. And brother, like I said, Latavius Murray might do enough on this year to warrant a contract from him. Who knows? But probably not with this insane fucking running back class. There is a nice market. I think Melvin Gordon's in it. I don't think he's signed. I think he's
I couldn't remember if Melvin Gordon got 2 years or 1 year. It was either 2 years with the first year guaranteed or 1 year, but it might be 1 year. but you might be right.
Anyway.
Lastly, we will jump over to the Atlanta Falcons because they seem to be an interesting point of discussion.
Kyle Pitts sucks.
The Gold Jacket podcast told you. Kyle Pitts, A, is it time to worry or is it time to buy? And B, Cordell Patterson to the IR. Tyler Algier, is he the guy or do you sell as soon as you get a good game or two?
No, you're selling right now if you got anybody asking for your pie. I want to know your thoughts on Pitts. I was just joking about Kyle Pitts sucks, by the way.
Listen, I agree with you. The Gold Dragon podcast was a big, you are investing way too rich with a guy like Jamar Chase on the board. Like people were drafting Kyle Pitts over Jamar Chase, so on and so forth in that class. That's what we were saying. The investment there was super rich, and with the tight end position and having to wait maybe a couple seasons.
And I got told the positional value of tight end is so great that I need to take it, Connor.
No.
And that Travis Kelce, there's no way he can repeat as a tight end one, Connor. He's so old.
Kyle Pitts was a guy that this time last year you were selling him, if you were selling him for 3 times first value. I think it's a good window to buy. If somebody is starting to drop that value on him, I think it's a time to buy. He's an extremely athletic tight end. He is a guy who's being completely screwed by a guy, Arthur Smith, who I thought for certain would.
I thought he was a tight end kingmaker.
I thought he would be good for Kyle Pitts. I did think he would be good for Kyle Pitts, but I don't necessarily believe you can't keep Kyle Pitts down this long and just go after Drake London or attempt to run the ball. The Atlanta Falcons are going to hit tough points in their schedule where they're not going to be a 2-2 team. Let's just face it. There's no way this team finishes better.
With Cordell Patterson on the IR.
Yeah, Cordell on the IR. And I think Cordell on the IR helps Kyle Pitts. Where do you put those targets? Tyler Algier, Damian Williams, you're not going to put those targets in those guys' hands because they're not as effective with after the catch as Cordell Patterson. Not even close. And I understand you can look back at Damian Williams a little bit and be like, well, he was pretty effective. Kyle Pitts can be way more effective if you use him right. But I understand people are pointing out trends. He's playing less snaps. He's seeing less targets, all this and that. I will buy your Kyle Pitts shares for 1 times at first instead of the 3 times at first 12 months ago that you were asking. While I don't think he'll ever be that cheap, or he shouldn't be that cheap, this was a guy who people were calling a generational talent. Do not let Arthur Smith be the reason that you say, well, now might be the time to get out from under him before things get worse. Things are probably going to get better. The target share is still pretty good. And I'm not worried about his snap share going down. Whatever we've seen, look back at snap shares for Arthur Smith. He leverages blocking tight ends quite a bit. So to me, not worried about Kyle Pitts. If somebody has really dropped their value on Kyle Pitts, 100%, it's time to buy, but it's not time to worry.
I like that. I'm going to propose a trade to you. If you were the Kyle Pitts owner, would you trade Kyle Pitts for TJ Hawkinson and a low first?
That's close. I don't think I would, though. It's close, but I don't think I would because TJ Hawkinson had a monster game this week, but it's quite clear that there's when Swift is healthy, when Amon-Ra is healthy, when
if I'm the Hawkinson owner, that's what I'm trying to push this week. That is the play right now I'm trying to make. If I am the TJ Hawkinson owner, I am throwing TJ Hawkinson.
Well, I am not the Pitts owner to go after and talk to, but there could be somebody ready to do a deal like that.
I'm just saying that's what I'm trying to work on. Either Hawkinson and another mid-range player, a mid-tiered player for Kyle Pitts that's kind of blowing up a little bit. And some teams are already looking, 1-3 or 2-2, but they're not championship teams. You're already taking a couple hits in in some injury departments. So let's take on some talent and build for 23 in some of those leagues, right? So like that's the move I'm trying to make. I was just wondering, that's close for you though, as a non-Pitts believer. That's close for you. Well, you're a Pitts believer, but like
if that was a high end first,
so
I
what
would
about
probably do it.
What player would you need with him?
Oh man. Like with a late first, what type of player would I need?
What about Pitts, and what other player would just Pitts?
I would probably do it for like it's tough. Pitts. I would probably do it for like a mid-tier, like wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. Like
that's what I'm trying to say. So like, who would you go with? Like a Gabe Davis? Would Hawkinson and Dave Davis get me Pitts?
No, first of all, I'm not a believer in Gabe Davis. I was more of a
you aren't, but
Gabe
like
Davis,
the masses are. So like, would a Hawkinson and Gabe, you think get you Pitts?
I think there's supposed to be a pick involved. Like, I don't think that you're gonna get away with just that. Like maybe like Pitts and a 2 for that package and a 1 or something. Like maybe might get that. But like also I'm more on the side that I think it's too soon to get off of Kyle Pitts.
Oh, I definitely think it's too soon.
I'd look at like a DK Metcalf. I'd look at like a Drake London. I'd look at like if people are out on CD Lamb because he was a player to buy earlier a few weeks ago. Like those are the types of names I'd be looking. Like I'd be looking like guys who right now are sitting in a spot where you frustrated managers, them in a first, and I would say, okay, fine, I'll give you Kyle Pitts. Like put yourself in a really good position. It feels like they're more in on Drake London than they are in on Kyle Pitts right now in Atlanta. Like the target share screams it. Drake London is getting targeted like crazy. And then CD Lamb, I still buy the talent all day, every day. It just depends where people are at with Kyle Pitts. And I'm just not in a position where the 3 times the first would be down that much. I'd be more at like a 2 times first type value for Kyle Pitts. So I'd be looking for a little higher end wide receiver. I don't really
like trading the picks. I like to trade. I'm a 2-for-1 type of guy. I'm more of a like I said, I like Hawkinson right now is my premium asset. 30 fucking plus points on the tight end position for him. He's the guy that I was screaming, don't reach out to type of grab. He was the perfect type of guy. Middle tight end 1 points with upper tight end price tag. You know what I mean? That's like what I think really like the 5, 6, 7, 8 tight ends really were. Elite price tags with middling production that they'll boom for you 1 week and I'm not shitting on him as a talent. I think he's definitely got the talent, but like I don't know. That's me. So like I'd be trying to sell him and I'd be trying to sell like
it's just so difficult because like Kyle Pitts owners were like the truthers of truthers.
Yeah, they were like the Smokey Hill.
Yeah, exactly. I wish he was here to talk about Kyle Pitts with us because he'd be like, nah, it's 3 times for day. He's probably the one who's sitting there saying, nah, it's 4 times first now, even though he's not doing well. But I mean, I just think like no, I'm not. I would like it's such a difficult position to be in, and it all depends on the manager and where their team is and what their stance is. But you should be way more patient with Kyle Pitts than some people are. Like some people are full on sound the alarm panic mode on Kyle Pitts, who is still, as we should point out, a second-year tight end. It usually takes 3 years for these guys to emerge in the first place. So the fact that we're talking about this guy's a second-round breakout.
Well, he was also the highest tight end ever selected, right?
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. We spend a lot of time on the stories, so we'll try and hustle through these categories.
Hustle and the muscle.
Emerging star. I got Kenny Pickett, QB for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was your buy last week. If you checked out this show on Thursday and you started pitching out some offers for Kenny Pickett between Thursday and Saturday night before everything the dust settled on Sunday, you would have knew Jim told you to go buy Kenny Pickett, and Connor is going to sit here and say he's the emerging star, despite, Jim's earlier thoughts on the circumstance.
I just think he should have sat still for the year.
He was way too quickly named the starting quarterback. They are clearly done with Trubisky. They're ready to move on to Kenny Pickett and take a look at their first round investment from this last season. While he did struggle in the passing game, it was his first time seeing action against the ones of an NFL defense. He started the comeback. This was a team that was down significantly. He started that comeback. He made that great pass to Pickens. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. There was a clear spark to that offense that was non-existent with Trubisky through 3.5 games. He's my emerging star for this week.
I don't have an emerging star. Everybody that you think, so like, I don't know, Chris Olave.
It was so hard. Like picking Kenny Pickett was like Chris Olave was an emerging star. Like should have been last
everybody
week.
Knows, you know what I mean? Like everybody knows these guys. Like I don't know. I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody yet.
The death of the emerging star segment usually comes around week 6 to 8, so it could be coming.
Actually, ready? I'll tell you one. To keep your eyes on real quick. It's Isaiah Pacheco. He's got a glint in the eye whenever local media talks to Andy Reid about him. The motherfucker runs like a 4.38. Big enough dude. I think he's like 212, 215. To keep your eye out for him. Now they're starting to let him a little bit of run. I'm not saying he's going to be taking over the CEH role. A CEH could have had a nice long distance pop off there last week. Look for him again this week on a Monday nighter in the back-to-back primetime games for the Chiefs. Take on their division rivals, them fucking November rain fucking bullshit win Raiders. But Pacheco is doing enough to get in now the rotation. Week 1, it was a fourth quarter blowout when he got his things. I was saying, hold your horses. It's not really time to saddle up yet with Pacheco. He was still hitting his special teamers. Last week he was getting a little bit of run at the end of quarter 1, beginning of quarter 2. So like that's significant run where he's going to get a little bit of action, and he's showing some pop off. And like I said, he's been kind of like a KC little secret there, where whenever Andy Reid's asked about him, he always has a little smirk, a little glint in the eye, and says, we have some high hopes for him. They think the kid's kind of special. I would be expecting like a week 6, week 7 real pop off. If he's going to do it and take his positional role in with the team with a 60-40 split. My God, I thought I was frozen there, Connor, for a second. I had the fear God in me there. I think it would be about, like I said, week 6, week 7, but he's a guy that I'd be keeping my eye on as an emerging star. Because Andy Reid can make those motherfuckers a hit, man.
And he's the one who was really high on Isaiah Pacheco. So if the coach is high on him, maybe now's the time to start buying if there's a frustrated manager and you can get something out of it. Player to buy. I got DJ Moore on this one. I mean, you're never going to take the truther out of me on DJ Moore. Managers are likely getting very frustrated with the circumstance, but this is a guy who's coming off 3 straight 1,100-yard seasons. What has changed? Look at the quarterback position.
Fucking even Baker Mayfield.
Even under Matt Rule, and this is the same Baker Mayfield who absolutely slaughtered Jarvis Landry and OBJ in Cleveland. He's the guy who completely slaughtered their value and made you feel like they lost all their talent in the world, but it is just not true. There will be big changes coming in Carolina, and one thing is certain: either Moore will go somewhere and succeed because this is the last year of his contract, or he'll stay in Carolina. Changes will happen, and he will begin to see success. It is important to note this is his 5th season in the NFL at the age of 25. This guy is 25 years old. That is it. He is likely about to enter into the prime of his career, and he literally is a quarterback away. Look at the bridge quarterbacks that he has had to suffer through. The attempted rebirth of Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield's second chance at life. Teddy Bridgewater, you look at some of the quarterbacks he's had to deal with, it just has not been fair for him. So somebody is going to unlock him. He's on the field over 95% of the time this year, which is a career high. He's seen 6+ targets in 4 games. What is important to know, his average depth of target and yak are at career lows behind Matt Rule and Baker Mayfield this season. Only 65% of his targets are catchable, which ranks 19th worst among wide receivers and tight ends, targeted at least 10 times this season. If there's a frustrated DJ Moore manager, you absolutely go and buy that man. Absolutely.
Love that. Mine, I already was talking about him, and I asked if I could skip ahead. It was Latavius Murray. I told you what I thought about him. He's already been able to. I can bring him up. Last week, with only one game played, 5.2 yards a carry, 4.2, 4.5, 4.4, 4.1. Like, he's no slouch. He's averaging, in the wheelhouse there of, a nice 4.2, 4.3 yards per carry. He's a toucan, like I said, finds the end zone quite a bit there. Let's take a look at his career here. 6, 12, 8, 6, 6, 5, 6, 1. And those aren't like, he's not been really a starting running back, would you ever say, Connor, taking that immense running back rushing workload? Like 146 rushing attempts, 146, 119, but he's still finding that end zone 6, 6, 5, and 6. So he's the guy that I'm sneakily adding in there with, as you've alluded to, Nathaniel Hackett, that clearly runs the RB by committee system.
Well, I didn't full on finish my player to sell, so I'm just going to pass it over to you, Jim, because I have no player to sell currently. So, Jim?
To be honest with me, the player to sell that I'm going to be selling was my player that I was telling you to buy last week. This motherfucker's playing stock market. It's Jamal Swaggy P. Williams, as he alluded to, as I called him a toucan last week. He got in the end zone not once but twice because toucan scores. And sorry about that. He's the player. He's my player that I'm actually selling. Like I said, last week was definitely an anomaly. Jared Goff, the number one quarterback, TJ Hawkinson, the number one tight end, Swaggy P scoring an immense amount of points. It was an insane run there. So, and he does score multiple touchdowns. Is a good handcuff quarterback or running back. Sorry. I am sorry that I just got distracted there. But his price tag is now increased. People are now, if you got in on him and you bought him a little bit, the price is increased. Now I'm getting out from him because they end up playing the Patriots this week. Then they got to bye, then the Dolphins, which is a nice little run, right? But then they end up playing Dallas, Chicago, Green Bay, Buffalo, and they're all pretty rough when it comes to fantasy points against the running backs and the tight ends there. So he's a guy I'm looking to get out from now.
I like it. That's definitely a good player to sell. Gold or fool's gold? Let's get into it. Jim, I'm doing this to you again, but I was wrong last week. I missed on Clyde Edwards-Helaire by a landslide when I picked him as fool's gold. This week, I'm picking the other side of the fence, a gold quarterback against you guys. That's Derek Carr against Kansas City.
Surprise. Fucking Connor's touting Derek Carr.
This is the first time this year that I've been touting Carr, so get out of here. Had to do it against KC. All quarterbacks faced Kansas City this season have had at least 34 pass attempts, 190 passing yards, and 2+ touchdowns. 3 games have ended with the winning team scoring at least 27 points. Carr is a QB 12, which is about where you expected him to land. He's averaging 17 points per game. He has had that 34+ pass attempts in all 4 games and 250+ yards in 3 of those games. I think this is just going to be a really big week for Derek Carr because it's a divisional matchup. It's going to be a shootout with Kansas City, with Patrick Mahomes in that offense. I think this is a good week to start Derek Carr. While I didn't call Jared Goff last week, I did call Geno Smith because what is another offense in this NFL that is shooting in shootouts week in and week out? The Detroit Lions. And Geno Smith ended up being the QB2 behind Jared Goff, who was the QB1. So, yeah, if you have a chance to pick somebody that is going up against a team that it's going to be a shootout, it feels like a pretty good opportunity to play them. Fool's gold for the second week in a row. Matthew Stafford has earned the honor going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Matchups continue to get tougher on the Rams. Most importantly, Stafford, I can't remember now, but the next 3 weeks are really bad if you're a Matthew Stafford owner. This last week was bad. This week is bad. And the next couple are pretty rough. Stafford is 2 straight games without a passing touchdown, 2 games with less than 15 points a game, despite having 240 yards passing or more in all 4 games this season. Stafford is being sacked at a career-high 8% rate. He's at a career-low touchdown percentage and a career-high interception rate. Something tells me that elbow may be bothering him more than he wants to admit, or something is extremely different from the offense of last season. Dallas is ranking 5th against fantasy quarterbacks, allowing 15.4 points per game, and they are 2nd in sacks per game at 3.8, and they've allowed only 1 quarterback to eclipse 200 yards all season, and it was only 212 yards. So sit Matthew Stafford again. It's just the juice ain't worth the squeeze with Stafford at this point. Maybe things get easier later, but this week and the next couple weeks are not pretty. Jim, you got some golden fool's gold at the quarterback position? Since we surprisingly have you without interruption this week.
You're an asshole. Yeah, man, actually, so this week, sorry, my goal quarterback is going to be Zach Wilson going up against the Miami Dolphins. This is, I think, his.
I was actually close to picking Zach
Sorry
Wilson.
about that.
This close to picking Zach Wilson, but I just couldn't do it.
It's a division game. I know that kind of scares some people off there. Zach Wilson didn't look exactly inspiring as inspiring as we thought he would look anyway. But anyway, squeeze out a win. This is, I think, his get right game though, where he's gonna end up pulling it all together. I don't know. The motherfucker can throw a nice deep ball. Miami's absolutely atrocious against the quarterback position, averaging, 24.5 points with a crazy amount of goddamn touchdowns. So it's okay, man. It's all good. Eight touchdowns. So sorry, man. I am so distracted today. There's a lot of shit going on right here. But that's my goal quarterback. I don't have a fool's goal quarterback. I was thinking it was probably going to be Jared Goff, but then I saw who he's ended up going against, and I think that's going to be a shit show. So this motherfucker probably has a chance to crack like top 3 again this week. I don't know who to go against with my fool's gold here. In a world where Geno Smith is a top 10 quarterback and Jared Goff is smashing potatoes, I don't know what to say.
I love it. Moving to the running back position, gold for me, Ramondre Stevenson against the Detroit Lions. Over the last 4 weeks, everything has been slowly trending up for Stevenson. Touches, snaps, fantasy points, and the rumors of the takeover coming that came just before Sunday's game. While the takeover didn't happen in Sunday's game, this feels like a game where you can really start to see a takeover happening. Detroit ranks 2nd worst among running backs. Only one of 2 teams allowing 30-plus points to the position. Prior to last week, they allowed 2 running backs over 10 fantasy points in 3 straight weeks, but Penny himself exploded for 28 points. So you can basically count it as 2 RBs over 10 points. They've allowed at least 1 touchdown per week, and 3 running backs have already gone over 90 yards. Damian Harris, honestly, this is a week to start Harris and Stevenson because with Mac Jones' health in question and whether or not he will play, this feels like a game where Bill Belichick is going to rush that ball over and over and over. Well, I should say Matt Patricia is going to rush that ball over and over and over again. And both Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris are likely going to end up as top 24 running backs. And bonus points, like I said, in the quarterback position, Detroit tends to have a lot of shootouts. I feel like Stevenson and Harris could both get a touchdown, if not multi-touchdown games. Fool's gold. Zeke Elliott against the LA Rams. Zeke and Pollard have really underwhelmed this season so far, and it could be because of Cooper Rush. They are both currently the RB 36 and 37. They're both averaging 9.1 fantasy points per game. So for those who had Pollard and Zeke scoring exactly the same on their bingo card, you're doing a pretty good job. Rams are first. Rams are number one for against the running back position. 10 points. They allowed their first 10-point running back this season, and it was Jeff Wilson, thanks to a 32-yard touchdown run last night, which accounted for 9.2 of his 13.4 points last night. Only one 50-yard rusher and one touchdown allowed on the year, and they all happened last night against Jeff Wilson. So I don't feel good about Zeke. I don't feel good about Pollard. So I would probably put them both as fool's gold. Jim, you got some running backs?
Yeah, I got a gold running back. It's going to be pretty chalky, though. It's going to be James Robinson against the Houston Texans. They're absolutely atrocious. Austin Eckler went for 3 total TDs. Javonte Williams rushed for over 70 yards with him. Cortland Sutton was ripping them apart. Mike Williams ripping them apart. So not only is Houston, the defense, absolutely atrocious on the ground right now, but they're getting torn apart in the air, and that's what's keeping the ground game being able to keep going, I think, is the fact that teams are being able to pass on them and keep them back on their heels a little bit, opening up boxes for running backs. And while everyone was scrambling in preseason to get Travis Etienne because, well, you know, he had to have been the lead back. Again, gold jackets. Even though we're wearing gold, we're cheap as fuck. That's how we can afford it. Any running back in the situation committee room that was a little bit cheaper, aka an undrafted free agent that rushed for back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, I was taking them. So James Robinson, I think, is still going to feast. Dameon Pierce, on a side note, if you own him and you don't think you're going to be a true contender, I mean, I understand it's week 4, but let's be honest. You've had half or a quarter of your season start to go through. If you think you're going to be scraping through as like the 9 or as the 8, the 7, the 6, maybe best to start selling him.
If somebody is willing to pay a first-round capital for him late, mid, early, I would absolutely 10 times over pull the trigger on a deal to get dump Dameon Pierce for a first next season. Has to be 2023. I get it. There's a lot of people out there who are starting to throw out firsts in 2024. That's just people trying to avoid because they know right now how good the 2023 class is. Don't fall for that at this point. The richest, the 2023 draft capital is only going to get richer and richer and richer and more and better for you. In the offseason, you trade Dameon Pierce for a 2023 first. You can flip that 2023 first on draft day probably for a lot more. So
that's why they're holding.
You can keep flipping and flipping. Like you can get a really rich investment. But I agree with you. Dameon Pierce, if you can get anywhere near 2023 first, you gotta. You'd be crazy if you're holding. If you're holding and you're sitting there at 2-2 or 1-3 right now, we need to have some strategy talk.
Like, don't get me wrong. If you're 4-0 and you got Dameon Pierce, understand.
You keep him.
Then you keep him and you roll. But like I said, like you said, 1-3, 2-2, you need to start looking at trading him. Maybe to a team that had Cordell Patterson. Just saying.
No. I like it.
Again, like the fool's gold, really hard. Probably Jamal Williams. I think a lot of people would be hyping up to him, thinking the 2 touchdown and the hype yardage is going to come. Understanding that they're playing New England, they're probably going to end up, you would think, closing it out as much as they've been in shootouts. Without a Mac Jones, with Mac Jones, I would absolutely agree with you. I think that would be another shootout. Humming with Detroit's way, but I don't think they're going to have a shootout this way. I think they're going to end up closing it out. this would, and a lot of people would think this, lead to more carries for Jamal Williams. I think he's going to end up just disappointing this week. He either scores multiple or he doesn't score at all, right? So, and I think this is a week that's going to leave a sour taste. He would be my fool's goal.
I like it. Wide receiver.
Oh,
Man,
I like
this one is tough to call, but I'm doing it because I think the opportunity is way too good at this point. Robert Woods against Washington Commanders. Woods has been the wide receiver 27 over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 12.8 points per game after a slow start. Burks is likely out. I mean, let's just face it, while they haven't said it yet, it seems very realistic to think that Treylon Burks will be out this week. So there's going to be a lot of volume there. And in week 3, he saw 9 targets. A return to that type of volume or better is very, very realistic this week against Washington. The Commanders are the 3rd worst against fantasy wide receivers. They've allowed multiple 10-point wide receivers every single week. So while the situation in Tennessee isn't very good, while Derrick Henry is likely going to have a monster game, while Jeff Swaim is likely going to have a great game because clearly Jeff Swaim is a tight end own there and not Austin Hooper, while there are guys who are due to have a monster game, Robert Woods is definitely going to have a big game. I think this is going to be a week where you can start him, where I think he has that wide receiver 1 upside. At worst, he's going to be a wide receiver 2 for you. That is the very worst he will be for you, is a wide receiver 2. But that is a safe bet to put for Robert Woods this week, I feel. Fool's gold. I know I told you to buy him, but it's DJ Moore against the San Francisco 49ers. Mayfield is terrible. DJ Moore has only eclipsed 12 points 2 times this season with a season-high 13.3 fantasy points. The connection isn't there. The offense isn't good. It's just a really bad situation. And you're going up against 49ers, who rank 6th best against wide receivers. They haven't allowed a touchdown to the position since week 1. Lockett, Sutton, and Kupp all scored over 17 in the last 3 weeks. None of their counterparts eclipsed 8 points. So no wide receiver 2 has eclipsed 8 points. To me, it just isn't worth the squeeze. If this feels like, Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore could both have like 9 or 10 points together, and that's just not worth it. I don't think there's any upside to DJ Moore and starting him this week. What about you, Jim? You got an intriguing one there. You got a couple intriguing ones, I see.
Yeah, my goal is Jamar Chase with Baltimore Ravens. This Ravens team has been absolutely, I would say, atrocious against the pass, allowing Jamison Crowder with 77 yards. You know what I mean? Stephon Diggs, obviously another level, but he still had a decent game. Actually, a little less than yards than him. Sorry, I'm looking for something here. Trying to pull it up. Where was it? Oh, Devontae Parker. That's the one. Devontae Parker had $150 on him. That's insane. You know what I mean? Absolutely insane. This Ravens team, I don't know. And now with Marcus Peters, this is another thing I didn't write down. With Marcus Peters apparently being seen screaming in Harbaugh's face at the end of that Bills game and having to be separated. There's clearly animosity in that locker room. I think this is going to be a shit show. This is obviously another upper elite wide receiver, and Jamar Chase kind of feels like low hanging fruit there. But when you got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase, you got a division game, and you got a shit show of a team that has been just getting torched by, I would say, second-tier wide receivers in Garrett Wilson and Jamison Crowder and Devontae Parker. What are you going to do with Jamar Chase? Remember when we talked about the AFC North episode, I think their wide receiver 3 could be any wide receiver 2s in the AFC North, which is Tyler Boyd.
They had a pretty solid day against Buffalo, but otherwise they are the worst team against the wide receiver position.
They're absolutely shit.
So,
I was actually surprised when I was checking it.
They gave up the 42 and the 40 to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. This could be a week where you confidently even start Tyler Boyd in your flex spot. This is one of those games where you see,
you see Chase, Higgins,
Hurst, and Boyd all have games where they're at least startable as far as a flex option goes. So you pick Chase as the low-hanging fruit. I pick pretty much anyone who catches a football for Cincinnati this week against the Baltimore Ravens.
We're on the hour mark. I'm not actually going to give you a fool's gold for here. Let's hear your tight ends here, Connor. Because people don't really care about my fool's gold or my tight ends here. But let's hear about your tight ends. I'm interested to hear your praise of the tight end.
Gold, I got Dallas Goedert. He's going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona ranks third worst against tight ends, and they're one of 3 teams giving up 20 points to the position. I picked Dallas Goedert as fool's gold last week. He actually had a respectable game. He definitely gave you a top 12 performance against Arizona. I think this is going to be a game where he just has a really good game. He's going up against a middle field that just can't see. This feels like a game where, just kind of like we said about the Cincinnati Bengals, where you can definitely, with confidence, start AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, because I feel like if anything, this could end up as a shootout in this game, and if not, Philadelphia could put it out of reach early, and by doing that, it would at least ensure that some of these guys like Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith have at least a touchdown to their name. So that's why I got at the gold tight end position. At the fool's gold tight end position, it is going to be, oh man, I had the guy up here. Oh no. 1 minute. Hold up. Pat Freiermuth against Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have been really good, really efficient against tight end position. The highest scoring tight end was Tyler Higbee in week 1 at 8.9. Since then, the highest scoring tight end, Durham Smith of the Miami Dolphins, had a 4.3. They even held Mark Andrews last week to 3.5. So for me, I am going to go with Pat Freiermuth. While I do like Kenny Pickett, while I do like the direction of the offense, I just don't think this is going to be a good week to have many people from Pittsburgh playing, because Buffalo's defense as a whole has been very good, very efficient. So Pat Freiermuth, fool's gold.
I want to ask you just a real quick side-off question here with the Arizona. Do you think the Arizona points against at the tight end position is skewed by Travis Kelce's week 1? Like, what are they if you took out the week 1?
Which team am I looking at?
Arizona.
If you take out Travis Kelce, he had 26. Darren Waller had 17. Tyler Higbee had 10. And then last week, Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas, who cares? They combined for 8 points. So while it is skewed a bit, 10 points like Tyler Higbee
that's good.
Week still gets you a tight end 1 performance.
10 points is a plug and play.
It's a plug and play.
Okay.
So Dallas Goedert, I mean, all he has to do, like that 10 points. Okay, so Darren Waller was 6 for 51. Tyler Higbee was 4 for 61. Like, you could land in that ballpark right there. You could go call it the middle, 4 for 50 and 1, 4 for 40 and 1. That's all Dallas Goedert has to do. And screw tight end 1 top 12. He's probably a top 5 tight end. If you get a touchdown as a tight end, you're pretty much guaranteed top 5, top 6.
I'll call it now. He gets 78 and 1 on 5. 5 catches, 78 yards, 1 touchdown, 7 targets. There you go.
I like it. I like the prediction. I like it.
Cynthia Freeland, watch out.
I like it. Well, this was it. This was us wrapping up week 4, helping you get prepared for week 5. Week 4 was a complete shit show. Hopefully week 5 shows to be a little bit different.
Sorry. I apologize. I'm a shit show.
We got tied up talking about Kyle Pitts, which is fair because I think it's something to definitely consider. That definitely led to a longer show.
Hey, we're still on an hour.
Exactly. Shout out to everybody listening and supporting us, watching. Make sure you rate, review, like, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that thumbs up. And you can follow the whole True North Fantasy Football crew. You can find them right above Jim's head, TrueNorthFFB.com, at TrueNorthFFB on Twitter, TNFF Network on YouTube. Oh, we have a question from Griffin Steegman. Should I trade Cook, Madison, and Debo for Lenny, Olave, and Keenan?
Season long or dynasty?
This has got to be. Is it? Yeah, tell us, Griffin. Season long or dynasty? We need to know. It's a game-changing decision. If so, if it's season long, I take the Cook, Madison, Debo package personally.
Well,
season long.
Season long, you take Cook, Madison, and Debo.
Well, Keenan Allen's missed 2 games now.
Yeah, but you got to expect him to miss 3.
And Olave's
already banged out the 2 that you're expected to miss. So then there you go.
And Olave's been good, but Olave also has a ton of vacated area or missed air yards that aren't there. And Lenny,
okay,
if it's not Dalvin Cook, it's Madison. No matter what, it's Cook or it's Madison.
That's what I hate about that side. I hate the fact that you're taking the whole pie.
It is, but if Cook's out, Madison's getting 20. If Cook's in, Cook's getting 20. And Debo, well, Debo's Debo.
If that was Swift and Jamal Williams, I'm taking that all day. Because Jamal Williams gets his looks even when Swift is in. Okay,
so are you taking Lenny, Olave, and Keenan?
No, because the piece of the pie right now is Debo. And Debo is going to score more than Lenny and Olave right now, I think. And I think Cook's going to swing it more. And Cook, Madison, Edmonds, Garrett Wilson for JT and Dylan. No, I do the first deal and I take Cook, So you got Cook, Madison, and Debo then, I'm assuming. Because that's 2 ones where you're throwing out Cook and Madison.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming you have Cook and Madison. I'd be keeping them. So if you want to get off Cook and Madison, Edmondson's Garrett Wilson, I would go. I would go Cook. Yeah, I would go Cook, Edmonds, Madison, Garrett Wilson for JT and Dylan. I would do that. I think I'd do that. That's worth the squeeze to me.
In season long, no matter what, so Cook has to miss time for Madison to be any type of fantasy relevance. Edmonds is really not that good. Garrett Wilson is doing fairly well. He has Jefferson too. Oh goodness. Yeah, he's got a bulk of that Vikings share. I would be more apt to do the second deal because, Jonathan Taylor, even if he misses a week or 2 or 3 with this high ankle sprain, as soon as he comes back, JT is JT. And, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are getting good looks in Green Bay.
I would do the second one myself.
Agreed. I would do that too. Now,
if you have that in place, I'd be hitting that deal, especially if you
if it's in place. I was going to say if the
my God,
Jones too. Good Lord, he's trying to just
stack. But that's okay.
But Jones and Dillon on a week are startable together. Jones can be in your RB slot. Dillon can be your flex.
You can roll Dillon and Jones confidently, RB1 and RB2 until JT gets back. Then JT gets back, you can roll JT and Jones with Dillon in your flex, depending on how strong your team is. I like that.
Definitely much better deal because you can't put in Cook and Madison at the same time. It just doesn't work. It never works. But you can use Jones and Dillon. So definitely agree with you on that. Where were we? Find the True North Fantasy Football crew above Jim's face head at TrueNorthFFB.com, at TrueNorthFFB on Twitter, TNFF Network on YouTube. And can you believe it, Jim? We are week 5, and we will be prepping you for week 6 next week in the NFL. Oh, boy. See you all next Tuesday.
I promise I'll be wrong.
This is a beginning point. This is the beginning of the rest of my life. I got the meaning, and I got to write it down because I don't want to forget it.
Just win, baby.